Hi, this is Michael Stützer from Artillery. You listen to Richard Metal Fair.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Richard Metal Fan Interviews. This is episode number 150. And today's guest, we're talking to Michael Stützer. He is the guitarist and one of the founding members of the band Artillery, a thrash metal band based out of Denmark. Today we're going to be talking to him basically about what got him into metal and playing guitar, as well as the history of Artillery. So without further ado, let's go talk to Michael. So what's up, guys? I am here with Michael from the Almighty Artillery. So how are you doing today, Michael?
I'm doing fine. Had a little trouble with the technique, but it's all working fine.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. So kind of like the format is, I want to do like a rundown of your discography as well as talk about like your musical history. But before we go into that, take it back to young Michael. So kind of growing up in Denmark, what were like the first bands that got you into metal and what made you want to start playing guitar?
One of the first thing was a guy, for example, like Michael Schenker from UFO. He was one of the first guys who I really listened to and said, "How there's a guitar that sounds really good." And I started to listen to music already in, I think, 1972 or something like that, with bands like Uriah Heep, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, of course, Slade, and bands like that. And then it's developed over the time.
Mm, all right. And so what were your bands like pre Artillery? Because I know on Metal Archives there's like Abracadabra, Devil Symphony, Unicorn or Voodoo. Were any of those like before you started up Artillery?
Yeah, so we started the band for a very long time ago. My brother, when we was, I think, 11, 12 years old, we couldn't play really much. A band called Silver Cross. And of course, named after the John Iommi's cross he had at that time in Black Sabbath. And in the start, we tried just to get playing, start to learn to play. And then we find out that there was you know, another company called Silver Cross was making child things. So we think it was not a much heavy name then. So we have changed it to Voodoo and then Unicorn, and then we called it Devil Symphony and Missing Link. And then it got to be Artillery.
All right. And so how did you get to know the guys in Artillery? Because I know y'all formed in 1983.
Yeah, we started already in 1982, and we played in a little town here in Denmark called Tostrup. And me and Morten and a singer at that time called Pionink was playing in a band there. And Carsten Nielsen, the original drummer, and a guitar player called Jørgen Sauron played just very near in the same place. And we met in Merciful Fate's rehearsal room and talked about playing something together. And then we met, and after I think a month or then we started to play together.
All
And the
right.
first and recorded a demo very soon, in already in December 1982.
All right.
So that
And
was the first.
all right. And so tell me about like those first demos, like We Are the Dead, Shell Shock, Deeds of Darkness, and Fear of Tomorrow. Was that like some demos that you were trying to like pass out to like or to record labels to hopefully get signed?
Yeah, it's the first demo we made, as I said, in 1982, and we really didn't get so much response on that because the singer at that time, called Pioning, didn't really fit the band. So after 4 months, we changed that and got a new singer called Carsten Lohmann. And then there started to happen a lot of record companies started to show interest, and we signed with the New Renaissance Records to get two songs out at that time, Deeds of Darkness and a song called Hey Woman. But at that time, Carsten Lohmann left the band, and we got the new singer Flemming Rønstoff. So he was with us on that two songs, and then we did the demo Fear of Tomorrow and get signed on Need Records.
Yeah,
We
and
have,
how
I think, that was
yeah, you're saying.
seven record companies interested at that time.
All right. And how did Neat Records find Artillery? Was that sort of like a local record label in Denmark?
We knew it because they had, of course, Venom, Psychotrop, saying Atomcraft and bands like that at that time. And we sent a demo for them, and they would cite us immediately after that. So it was really easy to get a record out at that time. So that was cool.
All right. And tell me about the making of the first album, Fear of Tomorrow. Tomorrow, it has like that kind of debut charm. So what was like the whole writing and recording process for Fear of Tomorrow?
At Fear of Tomorrow, we already have a lot of songs ready for that album, and even before Fleming started to join the band. So it was like a very Julian Morton and me, and Carsten was one of the really working hard at that time for the songs. And then Fleming came into the band and started to do some of the lyrics and stuff like that, and it was very at that time very easy to cooperate because we all wanted to have a record out very soon.
All right. And I love this album. Like the first two songs being like Time Has Come and The Almighty are very thrash, but I feel like it almost feels like very experimentation. Like you could go into a song like The King Thy Name Is Slayer. It also sounds almost like doomy, but then ends up being more mid pace with some thrashy moments. I feel like you kind of almost experiment with the debut album.
Yeah, because at that time we still have a lot of roots in, of course, the 70s and 80s metal bands like, of course, Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Accept, and stuff like that. And we try to take it a bit more on a more progressive side also. We wasn't that really good musician at that time, so we had to learn all the time, and you learn best if you try new edges to get into. And we always like the doomy thing also, like the King Thy Name Is Slayer, for example, and Show Your Head and so on, stuff like that on that album. And we still play songs from that album. We have 3 songs we play really really often. So yeah, that was a good time back in 1985.
And when this album like first came out, did you like started touring like outside of Denmark, or was it still just local?
Yeah, we of course we was moved in Denmark, but we had the first tour we ever had was in Holland and Belgium. We played 4 or 5 shows there in 1985. That was for the first time we was out of Denmark. We had played some really good shows in Denmark also in 1985. We had played with Slayer, we played with King Diamond, just to name a few. And then we was really trying to start to get out to play more and more. But at that time, we didn't play so much in outside Denmark.
All right. And then moving on to the second album, Terror Squad, because usually with the debut album, you have like your entire life to write, and there's a lot of hype with the first album. When it came time to Terror Squad, did you feel like pressure to follow up Fear of Tomorrow?
Oh, sorry, one more time.
Did you feel like pressure following up Fear of Tomorrow going into Terror Squad?
No, we really didn't think about that because we always had that way to into music that we just make some songs, and we never really thought about is that the right way or this is the wrong way or it just sounded like people wanted to sound. We always try to take them as we wanted to sound and what we like. So it was no pressure. I don't think so, because as I said, the song was coming really easy at that time also. So that was yeah. I don't think it was a pressure.
Yeah, I still think it's another great follow up to Fear of Tomorrow, and I just love like the album artwork. I heard it was like a sketch drawn by Jorgen Sandow, but I heard like Neat Records wanted you to just decide to just use it as like the front cover, but it still looks pretty badass.
Yeah, he original he did it like a sketch for an idea for Neat Records to take over and do. But Neat Records took some of the colors out of his sketch and used it. So that was really strange. It was, yeah, I think today I think it's very funny because at that time it was really, think it was really lousy that they did it like that. It was not the agreement. And after that album, we really didn't want to make any more albums on Need Records because it was very tough at that time, because I heard that Venom had lost a lot of money for the company, so they hadn't really the money to do a really good cover and stuff like that. But that was crazy. But I heard that the album has been on the 10 worst covers ever, so something had it did.
Wow. Oh, but I also but but it doesn't take away from the album itself. Like the challenge, really great opener. Or probably another one of my favorite Artillery songs.
Yeah, and we still play that song very often, and of course Terror Squad for that album. So yeah, it's still an album I look back to, and I think in one way we were very proud of that album at that time, because it was very early still in that way, and that time you were starting to listen more and more to bands like Exodus, for example.
Yeah. And then the next album, By Inheritance, I think it's a pretty good album. That was like the last album you did before the first breakup. Tell me about like the making of By Inheritance. What was that like, going from Terror Squad to that album?
And there was a lot of changing at that time, because Morten took over the guitar from the bass, and Peter Torslund was starting to play the bass, and that gave us a lot more opportunities to play, more harmonies, and more melodic things also, because Sander wanted more to play, not so many harmonies and stuff like that. So it was really cool that Morten and me started to play together at that time. And we did, before Jørgen Sander left, we did the start of Comaniac, and he really didn't like that kind of song. So he left the band at that time. But we have he's still good friends today, so no problem there, But it was that kind of way we wanted to do, and then we was going to Russia at that time, and make songs like Don't Believe and Comedic Finish, and of course some of the other songs we started to play there. So there was a good process at that time.
Yeah, and then you started touring for a little bit, and then then of course, and eventually in '91, one or so after the album, you broke up for the first time. What was the reason for the breakup the first time?
It was as the chemistry in the band was not as good at that time. Um, but today we are really good friends, so there's no hard feelings today. But at that time, some of us really wanted to go out to tour a lot, and make songs, and like that. And some of the bands really didn't want to tour, but wanted to stay home. And I think Roadrunner was getting tired of making all of good, opportunities for the band to get out to play, and we couldn't play because some people in the band didn't want to play, and that was the reason that I left, because I think it was really weird that we have all those opportunities to play and we couldn't do it. So and after I left, there was, I think, the band get on for 4 months, and then they totally split up.
Yeah. And then, of course, I think during the breakup, the first breakup, you did like Missing Link. Tell me about like how that whole like process of like getting to get that band together.
Michelin was my start of to getting to play music again, because at that time I was a bit tired of playing, because so many opportunities who couldn't get used. It was really difficult. So I get back to some of my old friends and just play for fun. It was never really meant to be serious at that time. But then Morten also joined the band, and we started to get more serious, and made 2 albums and a mini album before we reunited Artillery. And at that time, it was really difficult to get good singers in Denmark, because all wanted to play either death metal or grunge. So,
Yeah.
and we really didn't want to play that. So that was tough.
Yeah, I feel like the '90s was kind of like the period where thrash was kind of like in that vein. Some bands still wanted to do thrash, but some bands try to even like change their style a little bit. Like I remember in the '90s when Metallica changed up
Mm,
their style for the Black Album, and then they became one of the biggest fucking bands in the world.
yeah, also Exodus also changes something. Some of the way to written music. And Megadeth did also some things, but we really couldn't do that because either we wanted to play the original metal or fast metal, like so. So we can't kind of doing Michelin just for fun at that time, and we really thought that we ever got any albums out, but that was the way they'd happened, and after that we got back to artillery.
Right. And yeah, and how did you all get back together, other for back?
Yeah, the thing with back was that we got an offer from a Danish company, a really good offer to make an album more, and at first they were asking me and Morten and Fleming to rejoin and make the band again and do an album. And Fleming would do it because there was some money in it, but he already said that he didn't want to tour especially much. So we said, okay, let's try to see the album, see what happened, and then we could go on from that. And we only played two shows after that, Wacken and one in Denmark, before Fleming left again.
All right.
And then we knew that if we ever have to go with the band, we have to get a new singer.
Right. All right. And what was that whole like recording process for back? Because I think, in my opinion, it's one of the most underrated comeback albums of all time, in my opinion.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's also I have one of my favorite songs, Cybermind, is from that album, and we also still play that sometimes. But it was a difficult time because it was not really a band; it was more like a project. We had the Pierre from Invocator the Haunted. He was playing the drums at that time. Morten played the bass and the guitar because Peter was in the United States at that time, so we couldn't get back before the last songs. So he was with us playing live at that time. But it was a tough album because, as I said, it was more like a project than a band, and that's why we couldn't continue at that point after the last show Flaming did. So we had a little break again.
All right. And sort of like, what were you kind of like doing during like the second breakup before you all got back together there again before you did When Death Comes? Were you like doing any other bands or nah?
Yeah, so at that time, Morten and me and Peter was sitting down and said we really wanted to make artillery going again, but we really need a singer. And at that time, we couldn't find a singer who really fit into the band. So we tried and we tried really many singers in Denmark at that time. But then Metal Mind in Poland was releasing a box set with the four first albums, and all the band was meeting at me so I can tell them that was coming the box set out and what their opinion was about that, and then Peter, me, Carsten, and Morten was after the other was gone, sitting down and talking about what should we do, and we decided to go in the rehearsal room again, us four, and play some songs just to have fun, try that. And after we had been playing, I think 2 rehearsals, we all sat down and said, okay, we need a singer then. We really want to go out to play again. And we started to search for a new singer. And then there was both Carsten and Peter said, we have to have a new singer if we ever had to succeed to get out to play again. And then we got in contact with Søren Adamsen, who was a good friend of the band also. And we decided to make a new album with him, and because we got an offer from Metal Mind to play in Poland and make a live album and a live DVD, and at a big concert where the Megadeth was the headliner. And it was really functioning good, and people was really taking good against us, And we played 2 shows more in Denmark, and it was really cool. We did a new website, and people was asking all the time, please come together, play some new songs, get out to play live, and make a new album. And that's what happened.
All right, and tell me about like making When Death Comes. Did you felt like nervous to this to follow up back being as it has been like about at that time like a decade from since that album?
Yeah, yes, but we never really was afraid to do anything, because we really love to play, and our opinion was to, if you had to make a new album, it's the way we sound now. So we didn't try to sound like Bach or sound Fear of Tomorrow or By Inheritance, Territory, or anything. We just wanted to make a new album. Of course, with the new singer, you've always been sounding a bit different in you used to do. But I think When That Comes was a really good comeback album, and it's got very good reviews, and we got a lot of jobs to play. We never played so many live shows after that album, so ever we ever have done before. So that was really cool.
Yeah, but just I think it's a really good album. Like the drums, the guitars. Like I feel like the musicianship on that is just perfect.
Mm. Because we really was, hungry after to get some new stuff out. It was almost 9 years ago since our last album back. So it was really, we really show people that see Artilery are back. We really want to do a new album, really, with the pleasure to play. So yeah, I think it was working good.
Yeah, and I noticed you also like did some like re-recordings from your 1991 one demo, the Mind Factory being Delusions of
Mm.
Grandeur and Uniform. What made you decide to like re-record like songs that you did like years ago?
That was mainly because at that time we have, I think we had, we're still missing 1 or 2 songs to be totally complete in that. And many people was writing to us to say, why don't we re-record those songs? They never been on CDs, on vinyls or anything. So please record them again. So that's what we do. We also later on played some of the songs. So we have re-record all 4 songs. So that's cool.
Yeah. And then going into the next album, My Blood. Tell me about like that what was that like following up When Death Comes?
Yeah, but that was also an album at that time. Carsten was getting a bit tired of playing live so much. We played around 100 shows that year, I think. It was really many shows. And he was, like being getting a little bit tired of that. So he was saying just after recording the album that he was thinking about starting to leave the band, but still wanted to be friends. And at that time he was it was not working good. We played some shows in South America who really not was up to Artilery, the best we could, and then he told us that he was going to leave there because he didn't want to play thrash metal anymore. He wanted to go back to his punk roots, and that was of course cool. And then at that same time, Søren said to us that he also had some new things he wanted to try. He had, I think, 4 or 5 bands he also played in. He wanted to do a bit more. He still had helped us a lot on many tours later on, so we're still very good friends. There's no hard feelings there. So that was happening with My Blood.
Yeah. Yeah, that's still a pretty good album. And then the next album, Legions, I think is a pretty good album. And of course, he got signed to Metal Blade Records. How did they find Artillery?
At that time, we have a guy working for us called Tommy, who knew some of the guys at Metal Blade, and we record 2 songs for them. Dice Array and a song more. I can't even remember now, but 2 songs. And Metal Blade heard them and said immediately, "We want to sign you. can you make a new album? Yeah, and we just got a new singer and a new drummer at that time. So they were just going to the band, and we had a tour starting. So after the tour, we went to the studio immediately. Some of the songs we wrote on the touring, and that was a bit of tough, but I personally think that it was a really good album, because Michael, of course, is a different singer again, but he has very much technique and could do a lot of things we hadn't been used to, and combined it with the way we play the thrash metal. I think it was kind of unique, because it was you couldn't put us in a essay that sound like the German thrash metal or the American thrash metal. It was some kind of bit in between, and I like that.
Yeah, and hard to believe that this year does mark 10 years of Legion. So how do you feel about it now, 10 years later?
Yeah, but it's always funny when you think back to albums. There will always be some songs you really think was very good, and some songs you think I could have changed a little bit there, or you could did a little more different singing there, or something like that. But I still think when I hear it, it's an okay album. It's cool. It's a cool album. So we still play, Legions. We always play Legions live, for example.
Yeah. And then moving on to Penalty of Perception. I dig this album. One of my favorite albums from the modern era of Artilery. So what was it like making this album?
I think it's also, as you said, it was very cool, because at that time we were really been united as a group. And we have a really, really strong friendship in the band. Both Michael and Josh, me and Morten and Peter has using a lot of time to do that album, and was really, working really cool together. And we have played so many shows together, so also musically it was standing very strong. And I think one of the songs from there, Live by the Side, was really, making a big impact at that time. Many people wrote to us about that song. So yeah, I think it's a good album. There was some songs I really, really loved, and we also have played some of the songs live. So yeah.
Yeah, like In Defiance of Conformity. I think it's a pretty good intro. It has almost kind of like that ambient force sound intro with the simple guitars slowly building in. And I think that's a pretty clever way to start off the album.
Yeah, I'm glad to say that.
Yeah, and then Live by the Scythe. Scythe, I love sort of like almost very like the melodic riffs. I feel like, in my opinion, it's like your guys' like melodic album today. It has that kind of melody infused with sort of like the heavy thrash stuff that you all are known for.
Yeah, I like the combination, because many bands, is very, very, what we call it, very into it. Have to be heavy all the time. But I think one of the way, because Master of Puppets with Metallica, for example, is because they have variations in the song and the concept. That's make it so strong, that album, and that's something I really wanted to try to put into Artillery. And I think you were succeeding there some ways in Penalty by Perception.
Yeah. And then your last album, The Face of Fear, I think is a pretty good album as well. Well, tell me about like the making of this album.
See, this album was really tough to make, because Morten was getting very sick at that time, and I was, was writing most of the songs at that time, because it was really difficult for him to play at that time. He didn't play with us live anymore, because he couldn't, because he got some very ill. He got very ill. So that was a tough album, but I know that many people are really into the title track, and that's really cool, because we still play that song also. And it was very back to the roots. I think the Face of Fear song is really made me think about some of the first Artillery at all. So that was cool.
Yeah,
that was good with the album.
Yeah, like the Face of Fear is a really great song. I especially love that drum pattern opened up from Joshua. Rest in peace. I just
Mm,
think he's a great was a
yeah,
great drummer. It's a shame that he's not here with us anymore. More, I'm just still was still in shock when I heard about it.
yeah, it was really, really, really tough to lose him. I lost two of my best friends, of course, my brother and Josh in that band over time. So that was really tough.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just I just feel for you, man. Man, just rest in peace, or peace, Morton and Josh. Josh, I bet you they're looking down, like glad that you all are
Uh,
carrying on.
I think they made a band up there somewhere.
Yeah, but then of course your latest album X, I think is a still great album. But you got to think now, album number 10. Did you think that you would get around to like making 10 albums?
If people at the first had told me that at the first you're gonna make albums and you're gonna make 10 albums, you're gonna play in I think we've been playing in 67 countries now. If people had told me that time, I would have said to them, get off, man. That's a joke. We're never gonna do that. It's impossible. And here we are today, and managed to do that. That makes me really proud, and that's really a good thing because people, that's the fans who made us do this and keep us going. That's so damn good. We really love to play, and if people still really want us to play and like it, so we have no plans to stop. We just enjoy it so much.
Right, and it's been now like a little over 2 years since X. Have has X? How do you feel about the album now 2 years later?
As it was, as a fact, it was also a tough album to play because Morten wasn't there, and I used to get working very close to him. We got a new guitar player, Crane, who's a very good guitar player and also a good friend. But it was really, kind of difficult in the start because we were using to work at some ways. But we ended up to do it. I think it was really good. And Crane also made some good songs on this album. So we played very good live together. So yeah, I think it was a tough album, but it ended up very good, and it's
Yeah,
also got good reviews. So
yeah,
we
and I
had
know.
done something right, I think.
Yeah, and I noticed that you all have really been active since the last decade. What sort of like caused like the refresh of inspiration to like write like a lot of new material?
I think we still have the same inspirations. I listen to a lot of music, and also when you play live and go playing all around the world, you've got inspirations to do something. And I'm sure on the next album there will be some songs also will have some a kind of specialty in the way we play. Because we had talked about some new things, not traffic away from the style we play, but put some elements in somewhere who could get some new inputs. And I don't know if you know it, but we also recorded a live album from the Copenhagen in Denmark. We played here, who will be the last album just played on, and it will be released, I think, in maybe 2 months. So we're also looking forward to that with 9 live songs on. So yeah, we have to see that. And of course, we
Right.
start to work on a new album and have a lot of tour going on. We are going to United States to play here in late September, October.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's still a lot of things for us to do.
Yeah, and I know it's like you said, have been working on new material since it's been 2 years since X. So what's like the status with the new Artillery album, if you're allowed to say?
So we are starting to make some songs, and we have a lot of riffs going on. On Monday, for example, me and Crane shall meet there and for the first time try to do a song together. That's going to be really fun and see how that will win out. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
All right. And of course, me being like a thrash fan, have you been following like the current state of like the thrash metal with like newer bands like Evil, Toxic Holocaust, and Havoc? And how do you feel about like the Danish like metal scene? Because of course there's like bands like of course you guys and King Diamond, but even newer bands like Volbeat and Cabal are still killing it, especially in this time period.
And the good thing about the Danish scene is that there's coming more and more fast metal outfits out from there. We got a band called Impalers, we got a Demolizer, we got a Metal Cross. We have a lot of bands coming out who I think is very cool and great. And because we was some kind of the only really freshy band from Denmark in a very long time, especially in the start where everybody said we sound like a punk version of Motorhead because they didn't knew the word fresh at that time when we started. So I think it's cool. There's a lot of good bands coming from Denmark.
Yeah. Yeah, and so before we go, I just want to thank you for this conversation, Michael. It was great to be able to talk with you. Is just any final things you want to say or to promote for Artillery? I know you got a U.S. tour coming. I'm kind of bummed it's not coming to Atlanta, but it's just anything else with Artillery that you'd like to plug?
Yeah, first I will say for the United States tour, Canada tour, and this is the first part of a tour. We'll come back later in the start of the year after and do the East, like California and that kind of stuff, Florida and stuff like that. So we have not forgotten those kind of events. A lot of people wrote me and say, "Why did you come there? Why did you come there?" But it's the promoter who had done the first part of the show, and he had taken those cities to start with. So we will be back there, I promise. And then I will say a big thanks to all the fans who have followed us, many of them from the early start, and still comes to our shows now with their kids, their son and daughters and stuff like that. That's really cool. And as I said, we still love to play live. And yeah, keep all your mind up for the new Artillery album when it comes and see you on the road. Take care.
Awesome. So everybody, Michael from Artillery. We'll see you next time.